All right. Thanks to everyone for coming. I'm YeuxVerts Belle. I'm going to be your teacher here for manufacturing 102, Tech 2 manufacturing. This class will be about, I'm going to explain what we'll be explaining here, and then we'll go into further details. First, a little introduction about myself, then what this class is about and what it's not about. Then I'll guide you through the many steps of Tech 2 manufacturing with a very thorough example. And once we get the end, we'll get into the specifics of how we can do that in Brave space and the infrastructure we can use and who to get in contact with if we want to get started there. All right, the name is YeuxVerts Belle. I've been in Brave for about a year now. I recently changed corporation, you might see that, but I'm still in the same alliance. I've been doing Tech 2 manufacturing for 4 years, I think. Started doing it in high sec. I do it in here now. The profit is good, so that's why I keep doing it. That's how I finance my PVP. This class is about Tech 2 manufacturing. I'm going to go into the broad overview of Tech 2. I will not be talking about Tech 1. I expect people to know a little bit about it because that's the basics, and Tech 2 is an extension of the basic Tech 1 system. I'm not going to talk about Tech 3, even if there are some similarities. I'm barely going to talk about Tech 2 rigs and Tech 2 capitals, who have a lot of similarities with Tech 2 manufacturing, but are a bit different. And I'm not going to talk about building capitals or structures, although they have a lot of common with Tech 1. This is for another day, maybe. I'm going to take an example. This is the Power Diagnostic System Tech 2 blueprint. This is a fairly typical Tech 2 module, not one you use on every ship. It's a good module, but not essential. What is used is I recommend you click on it and choose View in Industry. It's going to be easier to see. This is what is linked is the Tech 2 blueprint original, but you're never going to see that one. All the best you can see is a blueprint copy. What you see is that it's very similar to a Tech 1 blueprint. It produces a module and it requires some materials. It's the materials that are much different from Tech 1. For it, you need usually the Tech 1 counterpart of the module you're building. You need the RAM, resource array, I don't remember the name of that thing. You need planetary materials, you need morphite, and you need what is called Tech 2 components, or in this window it's called components. Here we need tesseract capacitor units and nano electrical microprocessors. And you also need a lot of skills. As you can see, you need Industry 5, High Energy Physics 1, and Quantum Physics 1. This is the main difference between Tech 1 and Tech 2, is the skills, the materials themselves that you need, and the way you obtain the blueprint. Aside of that, Tech 2 is very similar to Tech 1. You get the materials, you get the blueprint, you install it, you launch the job, you wait for it to finish. Here is a very good link that I found on Eve University a few years back. It's an overview of what you need, and it's an overview of the process of building Tech 2. It doesn't go into moon reactions, which is something that anyone can do these days. It wasn't the case when this image was created. On this pretty picture, you see that to get Tech 2 item, you need a Take-Two blueprint copy, you need Take-1 items, you need planetary materials, components, you need to invent the Take-Two blueprint copy out of Take-1 with data code, decryptors. You need a lot of things. It's not exactly outdated, but it's missing the moon reactions part. But it still works. So I'm going to go through all of these components one by one to explain how you can get them, what is important, what is difficult to get about them. I'll start with the Take-1 counterpart. It's usually when you build a Take-2 item, whether it's a module or a ship, you need to build the Take-1 counterpart of that item. In this case, you need a Power Diagnostic System 1. When you build a ship, for example, a Saber, you need to build a Thrasher first. For most of the Take-2 items, you need to do that. Just one for building one Take-2. You need a RAM. RAM. It's an acronym for I don't remember what it is. It's a funny little item that was worth next to nothing. The blueprint itself is very commonplace. You usually don't need to research it because it's like for building a module that's worth a million ISK, the RAM is going to cost you 100 ISK, which is really nothing. But you still need it. So when you go into Take-Two industry, you need those blueprints. There are, I think, 9 of them. The RAMs themselves are Take-1 items built out of regular minerals, so there's no difficulty here. You just have to remember to have them. Also be careful, one run will produce 100 of them, so you really don't need to run them many. Honestly, if you go into the Take-Two industry, buy the 9 blueprints, they're going to cost you next to nothing, but do it. It's easy to forget. Next, you need Planet Goo, planetary interaction products. Usually P2, but sometimes P3 or P4. You don't need a lot of them, but you need some. Construction blocks, rocket modules, I don't remember the most common of them. There are maybe 6 or 7 of them. Usually when you build a ship or a module, you need only one of them. Planetary products are not difficult to get by, although sometimes you have a hole in the market, like today for me. Trying to build a ship and I can't. So it's a good idea to stockpile in advance a couple of days if you know you're going to build it, and keep an eye out on the market for those. I'm not going to go into deep details about planetary interaction and how to get them. You can contact the buy-buy program. Some of them are for sale there. Next, you have morphite. Morphite is a mineral. It's a fairly unusual mineral because you need to mine an ore called mercoxite that you can only find in NorSec. You need special skills to mine it. I'm not familiar with them. And you need to refine it with a fairly specific skills. I'm not familiar with that part. For the rest of it, it's a mineral that you only find in NorSec. It's not too hard to get by. Usually the market is stocked on those. You don't need a lot of it for Take-Two manufacturing. Thank you, Felipe. This is mercoxite. You don't need a lot of it for Take-Two manufacturing, but you need some. So I recommend, again, that you stockpile a little bit of it when there is an opportunity on the market. Yeah, you need... For mining barges, you need not a deep core miner, but a modulated deep core miner or something. I don't know too much about mining mercoxite. Next in the list is Take-Two components. This is one of the 2 big steps. I'm going to dive much deeper. In your industrial window, those are written as components. Those are Take-Two components. There are 36 of them. If you go into Take-Two industry, you're going to want all 36 blueprints of those originals fully researched. Those components represent between 80 and 90% of the price of the module or ship you're building, so you want to drive the price down. You want it fully manufacturing research, how is it called again? Material efficiency, I was looking for it. You need a full material efficiency on it, and you also want a good time efficiency on it because you're going to build a lot of those. When you build capital modules, this is going to be what slows you down. For example, if you build one capital gun, you need 3,000 thermonuclear triggers that take 3 days to build. So either you research them a lot, find a good factory, or you're going to have several blueprints of those, or your production is slowed down. Those 36 blueprints, those 36 components are divided between 9 times 4, 9 for each race. In each race you will find, if I remember right, I'm opening my own blueprint stack. In each of them you will find one capacitor for each race, you will find one shield emitter for each race, you will find one armor plate for each race. I think most of them exist in four models. Some of them are unique to each race, but you will find one microprocessor for each race. There is a similarity between the ships you build and those modules that for each race. Yes, if you build, for example, a main matter ship, you will need 7 Tech 2 components, 7 types of Tech 2 components, all of them are going to be min matter. You will need the min matter shield emitter, for example. You'll never build a min matter ship with Caldari shield emitters. Those are very important. Like I said, they drive most of the price of the item or ship you're building. So you want them you want them fully researched. You want blueprints original because you can't rely on copies. You build too many of them. Also, if we dive into it, let's take, for example, the nano electrical microprocessor. I think this one is the armor one, not sure. You usually recognize them by their color, although it's not always easy to guess. This is a minute, okay. If you go into either the industrial window or the description of the item, you see that it requires reaction materials. Yes, you can buy those from NPCs. Usually the 9 min matter ones will be bought in min matter space, etc. If you want them all fully researched, you will usually find a contract in Jita where they are sold a whole pack fully researched for maximum half a bill. This is, I know this is a fairly hard investment, but it is required. Another option is to buy all of them unresearched at market price, at NPC price. I think they cost something like 150 mil for the whole set, and research them yourself. It's going to take you, I think, 2 weeks. If we go into the details, you see that they require reaction materials. Reaction materials is basically moon goo that is reprocessed and reacted twice. This class is not going to go into reacting moon goo, but just keep in mind that if you go into Tech 2 industry, either you rely on someone who can provide you with the reaction materials, or you buy moon ore or moon minerals and react them yourselves, which adds even more to the skills you already need. But it makes you much less reliant to someone else, and you get a whole feel of the full chain of Tech2 manufacturing, which is, well, very satisfying. The final part of the Tech2 manufacturing is the blueprint itself. There are a lot of Tech1 blueprint original for pretty much any module or chip, etc. There are pretty much no Tech2 blueprint original. There do exist in game, but they are very rare. They were spawned at I think 15 years ago as a part of a lottery. There are no more that has been spawned. They are sometimes sold on the market for 50 bill at least for the smallest module or chip. You will sometimes see them. You will never own one. Don't bother trying, unless you're extraordinarily lucky. The only way, the main way to get the blueprint for building anything Tech2 is to invent it. To invent a Tech2 blueprint copy, you get a Tech1 blueprint copy of the item. Here, for example, you get the Power Diagnostic System Tech1 blueprint. You get an original, you copy it, or you get a copy through the blueprint program in Brave, and then you do a task that is called invention. Sorry, I'm trying to link that just a second. This is a Power Diagnostic System Tech1 blueprint copy. If you go into the description, the show info, you see that in Industry tab, you have an option to invention. It will describe that there is a time for run, 3 hours and 50 minutes, a success probability of 34%, and then it describes the outcome and the requirements, both in skills and in materials. The required materials for pretty much every Tech2 is going to be 2 data cores that are going to be used in the process no matter whether you succeed or not, and an optional decryptor. It's not mentioned here, but I'll go into decryptors in a moment. And you have to realize that when you invent, you have a chance of success and a chance of failure. Here the base chance is 34%. Your skills improve that chance. The infrastructure you use improves that chance. And the decryptors you use can improve or decrease that chance. All in all, you'll never get 100%, but there are some modules with the right decryptor where you can get 60–70% chance of success. You should always count that you're going to need several runs to get the blueprint you want. So you should always consider that. The blueprint copy you get, every time you run invention, you use one of the uses of the blueprint copy, the Tech1 that you are using. And it means that if you have a 10 run blueprint, you can chain 10 inventions. Yes, Felipe, you have to invent from BPC. You cannot invent from BPO. So you first need to copy or acquire a BPC. Yes, Ala's read a question. Just type it in chat.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, ask.
When you do invention, what is the right balance between job runs and like when you create the BPC for invention, what is better to do? A lot of BPC with smaller runs because you're going to waste a lot of them when you do invention, or a smaller number of BPCs with higher runs, so that the few ones that are actually going to be successful are going to be with higher runs total on them. Like which side is it better to balance that?
Okay. When you succeed in invention, you get one blueprint copy with the exact same number of runs as you were expecting. Whether the quality or the number of runs or the research on the blueprint copy of the Tech 1 that you used has zero influence on the quality of the Tech 2 blueprint you get. So the blueprints you use at the beginning, the number of runs you use is going to drive how many you can chain in one go, and that's the only thing that should guide you. If you know, for example, that you go on vacation for a week, you might want to have some blueprint copies with a lot of runs, so you can chain a week of an invention in one go. But that's pretty much the only decision you have to make. A Tech 1 blueprint copy that is fully researched is not going to help invention, and is not going to help your Tech 2 manufacturing. However, since you're going to be building the Tech 1 counterpart, you might want to have a blueprint that is research for when you need to build the item itself. But yes, it's also a balance between doing one run with a lot of inventions or doing 10 runs in parallel, so that a few hours later you have your blueprint, or you have several chances of having the blueprint. Yes, the balance is more about your time frame, the number of parallelisms you are going to using, the number of slots you have, and the time you have. When you invent a module, a non-capital module, you always get 10 runs, material efficiency 2, and time efficiency 4. When you invent it for a ship, it's manufacturing efficiency 2, time 4, 1 run. This is where decryptor come into play. Just a second, I'm finding some decryptors to link. Thank you, Gisiona. Okay, this is parity decryptor, augmentation decryptor, symmetry decryptor. There's 8 of them, I think. Yes, 8. Each one is going to have an influence on, if you look at them, it says so in the description. If we take, for example, parity decryptor, you see it has a probability modifier of plus 50%, max run modifier plus 3. It means the blueprint you get is going to have 3 more runs, ME plus 1 and TE minus 2. This is actually a good one, and I think it's not exactly expensive. Some of them are really expensive, so they are not worth using. You have to keep in mind that decryptors are optional. You can use them, you can choose to not use them. They are going to improve certain situations, they are going to worsen some. It's always a choice, and it's always something you should consider, well, think about it. If we take, for example, ships, if you invent a blueprint for a ship, you get a blueprint that has 1 run, which is honestly pretty bad. So you will probably be interested in any decryptor that is going to increase the number of runs you have on that blueprint. If we take, for example, parity, you use parity on a ship invention, you're going to get a blueprint with 4 runs, which is a lot better. But some of them decrease material efficiency, some of them decrease the probability modifier, etc. And some of them even decrease the max run. The end result is never going to be below 1 run, but so something to think about also. For modules, because you're going to get 10 runs, the number of runs is not as important. The probability modifier, the ME, is going to matter more. Yes, for example, the process decryptor is also quite useful because it increases the ME by 3, which is, I think, is the best one. Which is good for stuff like Black Ops battleships, the jump freighters, and stuff that is really expensive. Because 3% of materials less for building the ship matters a lot. Yes, without an decryptor, the METE is going to always be 2 and 4. Next, the last element of Take-Two manufacturing that I want to go into, at least the theoretical part, is going to be the skills. If we take again this little item, the Power Diagnostic System 2, we see that it requires Industry 5, which is pretty much common for all Take-Two, I think. It requires high-energy physics and quantum physics. If you go into your skill menu, the science category, you'll see that that category has what, 20, 30 skills? Most of them are used for Take-Two inventions. There are 4 or 5 of them that are used for Take-3, and a couple of them that are used for other stuff. I'm not too familiar with them. Most of them are used for Take-Two. You're going to see Armor Starship Engineering, Caldari, Galente, Minmatar, of course, for spaceships. You're going to see something, I think, 12 or 15 skills for the various modules and stuff, like electromagnetic physics, electronic engineering, graviton physics, high energy physics. Yes, I think graviton physics is used for Take-Two interdictors bubbles, but aside of that, most of them are only used for industry, Take-Two industry. So when you go into Take-Two manufacturing, you need those skills at least at level 1, and you want them higher because every time you get one more level in them, it increases your invention chances. Not by a lot, but it matters. Every time you do an invention, there's going to be 3 driving skills. I'm going to try and find an example, if you give me just 1 second. Okay, if we take the Power Diagnostic System 1 once more, you see the required skill. It says you need high energy physics 1, quantum physics 1, and Hammer encryption method 1 for inventing the Take-Two blueprint. You have 4 encryption methods skills, 1 for each race, and you have then the generic science skills, high energy physics, quantum physics in that case. All 3 of them drive your invention's chances up. You only need level 1 to do the invention. Sometimes you need more for building some stuff, but you only need level 1 for inventing. So you can go by with level 1. I recommend you at least get level 3 for all of them if you seriously go into Take-Two manufacturing, and maybe even level 4 for the encryption methods. It depends how serious you want to be about it. Because you also do a lot of research and a lot of invention and copy, you might also want to get the research and I think called metallurgy skills for having all the what that you need to copy and research all the blueprints you need. Because you need the RAM blueprints, the Take-Two component blueprints, the blueprints for the ship or module you're building. That's a lot of investment, both in skills and in ISK. So you should always be aware of that before you dive into it. However, the profit is pretty good. I think we've covered the theory for that, so I'm going to give you a little more advice on there's always so many skill points you need, and keep in mind there is very little overlap between the science skills for Take-Two manufacturing and anything related to combat. At least there's a little with the rest of industry. All right, a few miscellaneous details. This is a link related to the moons in Brave. Take-Two Industry uses about 80 to 90% of its manufacturing cost is based on the Take-Two components, which are themselves based on moon ore and moon materials. If you want to go into Take-Two Industries, it's a good thing to have a bit of understanding of how moons go. And even if you want to better understand it, you can also mine some moon ores, refine it, and start reacting it yourself. You don't necessarily need to mine the ores because there are so many of them. It's just simpler to buy them from other capsules in Brave or from the buyback. But knowing about the moons is fairly useful. Although that's more of a miner's job. This is part of the wiki of Brave Collective related to industry. It's cover a lot of elements related to industry, not just Tech2, but there's stuff about the free blueprint program with which I'm not too familiar. But basically, if you want to try your hands at Tech2 industry, you can ask a few Tech1 blueprints and try to invent them yourself and build them yourselves. One of these pages is, however, much more important. It's this one. This is the infrastructure page. Because Tech2 Industry does reactions for Mungu, copy and research for the Tech1 blueprints, invention for Tech2, component building for the Tech2 components, and module and chip building for the end product, it means you will require a lot of different infrastructures. And you want to cut down the prices and sometimes also the time required, so it's a good idea to go for the best infrastructures. You can find some excellent ones. We have a good industry and logistics team. So if you go into PZMA and if you go into GE, you will find perfect or near perfect for pretty much everything. Although you might have to do some warping between one structure and the next. I personally am building some Tech2 stuff in GE, and I'm set up in 3 different stations depending on whether I'm copying, inventing, or building. And the market itself is usually in another station again. If you play the cards right, you can do that with a Tech1 ship, a Tech1 hauler ship, and pretty much have zero risk as long as you stay aware of bubbles. If you jump to another system, you have the chance of running someone at the gate. I'm not too familiar with the other systems. I knew there used to be a good infrastructure in 68FT, but I'm not sure if it's still there. Yeah, deep space transport has a lot of cargo hold, and it is indeed an excellent ship for the task, but it's not at all mandatory. Keep in mind, data core decryptors, blueprints, RAM, they have near zero volume, so you don't need a big ship. Even an interceptor is enough to move them. The minerals in the moon ore, they are much bigger. Not big enough to require a freighter, but big enough that you need a hauler. Well, a lot of our systems do have everything you need. What you want is to lower the prices down. You want some structures that are read for best profits. So anything that lowers the production costs, even by 2 or 3%, will have a lot of influence in the end. If you take the example of just producing, you have Tech2 components and you have the ships itself, which uses Tech2 components. If you reduce by 2% both of them, you drive the price down by 4.2% on the end product. That might seem a little, but when your margins are thin, it does count. I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to say about Tech2 Industry. So at this point, if you have questions, feel free to ask them.
Slightly unrelated to the technicality of it, directly, but how is your setup like outside of the game? As in, do you use any external tools to track what you are producing, and how do you have like a custom spreadsheet that's simple as that, or do you just how are you organized to keep track of everything and where your margins are? And
that's a fairly good question. Essentially, there are two things: spotting profit and keeping track of what you do. For the second part, honestly, I'm not doing it. When I'm building something, I build the requirements, and even if I do, I'm reacting my own Moongoo. I don't particularly keep track of it because I'm not building a lot of stuff in GE. I'm not doing a lot of profit either. I don't blow up capitals every day, so I don't need to. As for spotting margins, this is another topic really, because it's a difficult one. Getting the manufacturing cost of an item is fairly easy for Tech 1, is fairly complicated for Tech 2. Even if you use external sites like FuzzyWorks, which is I recommend, but I don't have it on hand. If someone would link it, I would appreciate it. FuzzyWorks has trouble giving you the exact manufacturing cost of an item that has 3 or 4 steps in the production. If you have to include the chances of invention that drives the price down, in some cases it's really difficult. However, keep in mind that if you want to produce items, you want to not only focus on profit because, well, it matters, but you also want to focus on demand, especially if you're going to sell in Brave Space, which is the easy solution. You want to sell stuff that people will buy. It's not useful building, I don't know, Guardians, Tech 2, Logi armor ships, because we don't have an armor doctrine, so no one will be buying it. The best way is to look, the simplest way, not the best way. The simplest way would probably be to look at the GTAR prices for an item, to look at the GE or PZMA price for the same item, and to check if it's part of a doctrine. And then you have a simplified difference between manufacturing cost, the GTAR price essentially, and the price you can expect to sell it, and if it's going to be bought. If it's something that is used a lot in standing fleet or in doctrine fleet, you have a good chance of selling it in high volume. Well, moderate volume. Any other questions? Well, if there are no more questions, I guess this ends this class. Thank you everyone for attending. Oh, yes, as Rank Wrinkle said, well, it's true, because you need so much between blueprints, blueprint copy of stuff, blueprint originals for Tech 2 components, everything. Getting started in Tech 2 industry is very slow, much slower than Tech 1, and it's a lot of investment, both in skill and ISK. It's fairly similar to capital manufacturing because about how slow it is to start, I think, although it doesn't require as much funds. I hope I answered a lot of your questions, and I hope to see you as competitors nearby. Until then, I wish you all a good day. Fly brave.